Hello and welcome to the Penultimate Roll, our frankly ill-advised foray into the world of podcasting. I am Victor Seraph, at least I was the last time I checked, and joining me in the studio today is longtime friend of the channel and one of my favourite human beings. It's Mr. Nicholas Ginn. How are you, Nick?
I'm all right. Lovely to be here. Hello, everyone.
I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're doing this and what we want to achieve with this, but that seems like an incredibly poor way to start an episode of a podcast. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the episode. In the meantime, Nick, what have you been up to in the hobby over the last few weeks? What's been stoking your fires or grinding your gears?
Oh, I've been learning how to paint feathers.
Feathers.
Feathers, yeah. Getting super good at these things now. He said, lying, but yes. Now I've been learning how to paint feathers as I expand my painting techniques. I finally finished painting all of my warrior priestesses that I was desperately trying to finish.
Nice.
And I've been failing terribly at Final Girl, trying to play through the scenarios in the lore book, and trying Malem for the first time with you.
Oh yes, yeah, we played that last night, actually, didn't we? Yes. I mean, in fairness, you didn't do quite as badly as I did, if I recall. So take that as whatever scale of compliment you think it is, really.
Oh, it was good fun. Very fun theme, I think, that one.
Yeah, it's a good little game. I'm not sure, in all honesty, how closely the theme matches the gameplay, but it's definitely a fun little one that doesn't take too much brain power to play, does it? So yeah.
And it also means within the first few minutes I've plugged another video on the channel, so that's fine. I've done my bit now, so that's okay.
Fantastic. The check's in the mail.
So what have you been up to, Victor?
I've got a bit of a moan to share with you, if that's all right, Nick. A little, get my high horse for a little bit, at the risk of stoking the comment section of this podcast. But I've been trying to get back into chess over the last couple of weeks, and I should preface this by saying that I'm not a very good chess player. I don't have any delusions about my skill in that regard, but I've been trying to put toe to water and get back into it. And in my latest game, I lost the game of chess in 6 moves, which I think even for me is a new low in terms of my strategic capabilities. And I know this is going to come across as sour grapes, and I guess to some extent it is. It raises a question in my mind, which is, do chess players really enjoy playing chess? Like at the point at which you're beating somebody in 6 moves, aren't you just not playing the game at all? We might as well have just had a cuppa and a biscuit, might we? At that point, is that an unreasonable perspective?
I think it sounds very much like you're a draftsman to me. I mean, isn't that the same with all games, though? I mean, if you play any game with someone whose ability is too far out of your league, for lack of a better way of putting it, then you don't enjoy the game. You need to be playing it with people who are on the same or similar footing. There's no point in you playing chess with a grandmaster, is there? Until you are a grandmaster, obviously, which I'm sure you will be one day. But
not at this rate. But I don't know. I guess I sort of feel like the experience of playing a game is about more than just the sort of winning of it. But at the point at which the game is over that quickly, I don't know what me or the other player got out of that experience. Is my takeaway from this. Like, I can't imagine that either one of us went away thinking, "Wow, that was an amazing game of chess. I'm glad I took the time to play that." But I don't know. I mean, I'm conscious that all the chess players in our audience are currently scrambling to their keyboards to explain to me how offensive I'm being about the game and indeed the players of it. But I just can't think of another game where it's possible to lose that quickly. Can you? I mean, I guess Onitama on the basis that it's pretty much chess anyway. But
Well, I was going to say, in any case, why are you playing chess when you could be playing Onitama, which is chess plus, as far as I'm concerned? But,
I
and
mean,
and at least has the equalizing effect of the moves you can make being exchanged and limited, and well, I think that equalizes things a bit as well. But
yes, you're right. That is definitely my mistake.
I was trying to think of an answer to your question, but can't think of anything where you can be that.
If it's any reassurance, you've already been thinking about this longer than it took me to lose the game of chess. So
no, I can't. I mean, I can't think of any game where you can inherently win the game straight away. You normally in games you have to build up, some sort of set of cards or get to a place on the board, or there's some sort of time cost to getting towards victory, which there isn't in chess if you make a bad enough move, I suppose. So, which you did apparently.
Apparently, yeah. I mean, and apparently in such a way that there was no way for me to counter it by the time I figured out that I was going to lose. But I don't know. I mean, I guess all of that's fine. But it just, if it was any other game, you wouldn't even bother getting it out the box for that length of experience, really, would you? I don't know. I will persevere, but I suspect what we've discovered here is that I'm just not a very good chess player and also not a great loser. You heard it here first, folks. So, Nick, you and I recently attended the UK Games Expo in Birmingham, UK, which I'm told, but have no way of verifying, is now the third largest gaming convention, presumably tabletop gaming convention in the world, which seems implausible, but I'm throwing it into the podcast anyway with a bunch of caveats to make myself seem more knowledgeable on the topic.
Well, I think if it's the third largest, I think the first and second largest are frankly excessive in their scale.
I'm not speaking from first-hand experience, but excessive in scale probably sums both up. Am I right to think this is your first sort of convention type experience?
Yeah, of any kind, yes. So yeah, a complete convention virgin up until this one. Yeah, I was very much amazed by the size. I don't know, there's just so much stuff there that I'm not sure even now I can quite appreciate how much stuff that we were going past and cramming around. But yeah, no, it was really good. It was really good fun. Very tiring, but very good fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of time on your feet, isn't it? But yeah, the scale of it at this point is quite incredible. I think I'm right in saying that they expanded the sort of amount of floor space available to themselves quite considerably from previous years. But boy, did it not feel like it was any less crowded and any less packed with different games and manufacturers and sellers and all of this sort of thing than it has been when I've gone in previous years.
Yeah, it was absolutely round.
So I guess for those for those listening to the podcast that perhaps haven't been to the expo themselves, I guess how would you describe it to other convention virgins?
Well, with the biggest collection of games and game accessories, if that's the right way of putting it, all in one place that I've ever seen. And yeah, it was just, as I say, it was amazing how much stuff they've got packed into that. Obviously, the odd YouTube celebrity to see and then giggle like a schoolgirl and run away before you might actually speak to them because you're too shy a groupie to actually go and speak to them.
You're too kind, Nick. You're too kind.
You found me eventually, but yeah, I mean, it was really good fun. I mean, I managed to complete my Final Girl Series 1 set by bizarrely enough buying hands last for a really good price there. But there was so much temptation there. I mean, there's so many paints and scenery stuff and models, and very, very difficult to restrain oneself in amongst all that. But yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was just hobby heaven round every corner, wasn't it? Really,
It was a bit, yeah. I mean, we both, I think, ended up being quite restrained under the circumstances this year. I've definitely come back with much larger hauls from the expo than I did this year for whatever reason. But like you say, it does very much feel like it's the place to be for every manufacturer or supplier of games, sort of big or small. And there's a huge collection of board games in the board game library there every year now that you can sort of borrow temporarily, either to decide whether you want to purchase the game yourself or just to enjoy with friends in the free play area. For some reason that I don't understand, but I'm absolutely here for. There's always a bunch of Vikings fighting in the outside the main hall, which is great entertainment. Always seems to go down very well with the kids. So yeah, it's just it's a great day out. Although as is becoming the tradition for the UK Games Expo, it was absolutely sweltering, and rubbing shoulders with 50,000 odd people probably didn't help that part of the experience, really.
I mean, there's so much stuff there. I struggle to think of anyone that wouldn't find, well, I was going to say a game, but that wouldn't find a massive section of hall that was devoted to something they were very passionate about. It was it's incredible how much stuff. But
yeah, I mean, in a funny sort of way, I think that's almost the one thing that could go wrong in your experience of it, in that there's so much there now that I don't know. I'm be interesting to get your thoughts, I guess. But I think for me, I've started to feel like I need to go in with a bit of a plan of kind of what I want to see or what I want to do, or do I want to try and get on a demo game, or find somewhere to paint something, or this sort of thing. Because I think otherwise there is a danger that there's just so much that you just kind of end up ambling around a little bit.
Yeah, I can see that. Although obviously some of the sections are like stores have turning up with their stall and their sort of shop. So I mean, I guess if you cut out, like, if that wasn't what you were going for, obviously to sort of go to those sorts of general shops, you can cut out a fair amount of it, I guess. And if you're even looking it up, you've probably got that. Well, you've probably got the plan you're talking about, because you've got the game that is being shown there for the first time, or or that you want to see for the first time, that's being played there, that you're going to beeline to anyway. But yes, I mean, it is true to say that the ludicrous set of large maps of and endless numbers of where things were, and then certainly we got lost a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, I'm normally pretty handy around a map, but I have to say, I found the guide to the expo weirdly not much. It was just so disorientating, wasn't it? Just because everything looks like everything else, and it's hard to figure out kind of what direction you're facing. Yeah. So, what were your sort of highlights from the day? Was there anything in particular that you saw that piqued your interest, or games you'd play again, or?
Well, I mean, there were lots of things. I mean, I was kind of there for a general mooch around brands and shops and things. Generally, still on the hunt for the exact gaming mat I'm looking for, which I'm not sure what I'm looking for, but when I find it, I'll know. But I was definitely excited to see the Starcraft tabletop game and get to look at all those models that I'm going to steal out of your set when you finally have it and open it up.
That might be quite a while, mind you, because like a fool, I supported our local hobby store by ordering it from them. So it looks like it might be quite some time before Archon get around to fulfilling those orders. But yes, quite looking forward to having even more plastic sitting around my house that I ought to have painted and haven't.
I do think it would be interesting with those models to see if anyone. Well, I don't. Has anyone done this? Because I don't think I've seen it before, where people have given you those sort of the translucent plasticky bits for, the gun going off or something exploding or whatever. Is that in anything else other than those StarCraft minis?
Translucency bits as accessories, like as kind of add-ons that you can purchase from elsewhere, have been a thing for a while,
but not included.
But I've not seen them included in a game previously. Certainly not to the extent that they are in this. And it's an interesting one because from a hobby perspective, I think it creates a small dilemma in the sense of, do you leave it as translucency bits and sort of paint around them, and then depending on your skill as a painter, potentially have you be in a position where the sort of overall shading of them and what have you isn't quite right, or do you take the plunge and actually paint over those bits? I mean, it's great for if you're the sort of player that doesn't want to paint models, having all of the factions in a different, distinct color, and with those kind of translucent acrylic parts to kind of give that an extra bit of pizzazz, so that they don't look terrible on the table unpainted.
Yeah,
I think is an interesting.
I don't think it means that you necessarily don't paint them, though. I think it's just a nice way of having it that you can play with them straight away.
Yeah,
and they look pretty good, and they're distinguishable from each other because, as you say, they're blue for Terrans and purpley pink for Zerg and goldy yellow for Protoss. I think and I just think those little extra bits are quite cool. As you say, you might still then paint over them, and probably will when you come to paint the things, but I do think they're a nice add-on, and the fact that you seem to be able to just clip them in or out, at will, so you could paint it up and then still decide whether or not you're going to sort of have it in the model the whole time or not. But
yeah, they're definitely optional as well, aren't they? For the most part, so it kind of adds a bit of extra customizability to them as well. And I'm sure there's stuff that if I think about it long enough, I'm sure there's stuff that you could do with like washes and so on, so that you're taking advantage of the translucency, but also adding a bit more kind of contrast to the whole thing. But yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's quite good for me as someone that it's not that I'm not painting, but it takes me a long time to paint, and therefore, I feel guilty about playing games with grey plastic, even if it's not I'm just playing with friends. It's not a tournament situation, but it still just looks terrible. But I feel like with these models, you can just buy and play, and when you get to it, you get to it, sort of thing. I don't think it necessarily means you don't paint them ever, but I think it's good enough that you can still have your games till you get there.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So what were the highlights for you, Victor?
I mean, there was so much, wasn't there? I think one of the things I'm particularly looking forward to, and it was interesting to see the prototype of the upcoming expansion for Kelp, the name of which currently escapes me, but it looks to be introducing essentially young into the equation, which looks like it's going to make it for a very different feeling game, or at least a game with a lot more variables than the kind of base Kelp game, which we've played a few times together. And it sounds like that's going to be hitting Kickstarter somewhere around sort of September, October, November time this year. So that's definitely one that I'm going to keep my eye on. As having had a lot of fun with the original sort of base game.
What was that? What was the other game that you were trying to find that you didn't? Well, you did find, but didn't get there in time to get.
Oh yes, I've been trying to track down a copy of Gachapon Trick, which is it's a trick-taking game, but it's kind of focused around set collection, and the sort of winner of the trick has to pay to collect sets of Gachapon toys. And I'm probably not making it sound very interesting at all.
It's like we're playing it with you right now.
I know, right? This is why I don't do unscripted videos. But yeah, it kind of blew me away when I played it last year. But it's not very easy to find in the UK. And I was hoping to track it down at the expo, and came tantalisingly close to getting my hands on it. But for a cruel twist of fate,
literally the last copy disappearing in front of you. I mean,
it's pretty devastated. I'm not going to lie. But these are the first world problems that I have to deal with in my life, I guess. But yeah, so I'm either going to have to kind of import that internationally, or wait until it sort of reappears in the UK. But I think it bodes well that it's obviously not just me that thinks a lot of it. That was quite evident that other people were trying to hunt it down as well. So yeah, glad to see it being successful. Just wish that I'd managed to get my hands on that one, really.
And of course, if the makers are listening to this, they can send a copy to PO Box. Where's my copy, you? So and so's.
If only we had that kind of clout with the manufacturer of these games. Maybe one day. So, do you think you'll be attending next year?
I definitely think it's in my calendar, and that I would like to. As always with kids and life,
Sure.
it becomes a problem. But yeah, no, I really did enjoy it. It's, as I say, there's a lot of temptation there, which is go with a budget. Actually, yeah, that is a good. Yeah, I would say that's a good tip for going to these things: is go with a budget and stick to it, because otherwise you're going to come back with a lot of stuff and not a lot of money left. So yeah,
definitely good advice. I mean, is it interesting? You mentioned your kids there. I mean, do you think it's the sort of thing that we definitely saw whole families, and in some cases quite young children, at the event. I mean, do you think it's the sort of thing that under 12, under 10 children would, could attend and enjoy? Is what were your thoughts on that?
I definitely think so. I don't know whether you would go for as long a day, though, because it was tiring for us, and we've got grown up legs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it might be a shorter day, but then of course it's over more. It's across several days, so you could just dip in and out. But in terms of what's there, yes, absolutely. I mean, yes, you're going to have kids nagging you to buy everything on display, and all the games that are set out that you can try, or obviously if you played them before, just sit down and play because you want to have a rest. But so yeah, there's loads there for all ages. I think. I don't think there's a age group that would not enjoy that, to be honest. Here's a question for you. Talking about models that you don't paint for a long time, because that's very much my thing. What is your oldest unpainted model that you still haven't got around to painting?
Ooh, do you know? I've probably still got unpainted miniatures from when I was like genuinely a child, which I'm not going to put on record how many years ago that was, but needless to say, we are talking multiple decades. I've definitely got somewhere a quite beautiful unit of armoured skeletons from the very old Games Workshop Undead range, which in true Victor fashion, I bought in some quantity, thinking I'd have a nice big force of armoured skeletons to sort of deploy into my games of what was at the time Warhammer Fantasy. And they're somewhere in the room I'm sitting in right now, actually, and still very much unpainted. So Yeah, I mean, you'll be shocked. Knowing me as you do, Nick, you'll be shocked to know pretty old is the.
So is there one? I mean, is that the one that sort of niggles you at night when you think about all the things that you haven't painted? Is it armored skeletons?
I mean, at the risk of getting too philosophical on our very first episode of this podcast, I don't really get kept up at night by the miniatures that I haven't painted. If that makes sense, I know that there's a sort of popularity in the hobby in recent years to kind of talk about piles of shame and sort of slaying the grey and all of this sort of business. But for me, the hobby's never really felt like I've never really looked at my sort of list of unpainted miniatures and treated that as a list of successes or failures, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's always been more about being surrounded by lots of potential projects that might sort of float to the surface in terms of my enthusiasm at a particular moment, and being able to reach for something and hobby sort of as and when I want to.
So you never see the mountain of models and feel that weigh upon you like I do then.
I don't feel guilty about it, and I don't feel pressured by it. I think as some of our recent videos on the channel probably illustrate, I think I've got to a point over the last couple of years where I feel like, perhaps in part due to the amount of time it takes to edit for the channel, that I've lost a little bit in terms of workflow when it comes to painting and sort of making miniatures. And that's a balance I'd like to readdress. But I don't feel constantly weighed down by the stacks of plastic around me, if that makes sense. I'm not haunted by all the projects I haven't completed. They still give me a bit of a buzz, and I still kid myself that I'll get around to them all eventually. But I don't feel like and I know this is not the same for everybody, but I don't feel negatively about what I haven't achieved in the hobby. But it sounds like it's different for you. I mean, do you
Well, you've probably never stopped painting models. Would it be fair to say?
I've had a few droughts over the years at various points.
But you've never had a sort of I've officially given this up
No.
Period. Whereas obviously I've come back from a very long drought of not doing anything with these things, and have my cupboard of shame of all of the models that I had when I was younger that never made it past super glue, and if they were lucky, taking the mold lines off, and probably not many of those got that far. So yeah, maybe that's the thing. Whereas you've had a running flow of creativity, whereas I've just come back to the hobby, like a job I forgot to do years ago, and opened the cupboard and gone, oh my goodness, that's gonna be a big job.
I mean, I think where I'm slightly envious of your work ethic on these things is that I don't think it would surprise anybody that knows me for me to say that I'm not always the best at finishing things. So I will quite often overcommit in terms of the kind of scale of project that I'm sort of thinking that I'll take on. It was not. I mean, I've got slightly better in recent years, but it used to not be uncommon for me to buy, whole armies of things before I'd painted a single miniature, and then paint a couple of miniatures, and then move on to something else. And again, it doesn't weigh on me in this. I don't sort of carry that as a regret. But I think the one plus of your sort of kind of approach to all of this is that it seems to me like you've got a much better chance of actually completing a warband or completing an army or having a fully painted board game of some kind, whereas that feels like something that I struggle with.
I mean, I will say I finished my one warband and then turned back to that cupboard and thought, oh no, I had 3 warbands, so I've still got 2 more to do. And then instantly, felt shame and despair again at the fact that this was just the beginning. I was just going to say, I think I might feel a lot different. I mean, as you said, I have now officially finished a warband. Like, I can actually play a game with everything painted in that particular game. And I think I might feel different if I had a completely painted army amongst my many completely unpainted, in most cases, armies, rather than the odd bits here and there that I have. I feel like that it's all unfinished projects rather than and massive projects. So hey ho. But there we are. But yes, it's sort of there doesn't, other than that one warband, I suppose I should dock that success and appreciate it for a while. But everything else is just unfinished. There's no finished project to go, oh yeah, that's good. It's all unfinished projects.
Sure, but I guess this is our leisure time, right? I mean, this is where I get slightly annoyed at some of the discourse around these sorts of expectations that we place on ourselves as to how productive we are in what is our ultimately our leisure time. I mean, there's slightly more structure to it for me, because I'm trying to paint things up so that we can film stuff on the channel and that sort of thing. But at some level, it's still a hobby, and therefore I feel the metric of success is, are you having fun? And there's probably a line somewhere in the sense that, yeah, I mean, don't remortgage your house to be buying every new model that comes on the scene, or every new edition of every board game that comes to market, and all the rest of it. But to some extent, I feel like if you're operating in a space where it's not having a negative effect on you, and you're not doing anybody or yourself any harm, and your jam happens to be that you've got lots of unfinished painting projects on the go at any given time, but you're still having fun, I think that's the goal, isn't it? Like, I don't think I think anything else is trying to impose a regimen on our creative time that really doesn't need to be there, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely correct. Really, that is the more healthy way to look at it. It's just not the way I inevitably find myself looking at my hundreds of models. I mean, I don't, well, I have, but that's not. I was going to say I haven't bought any new models. I have bought new models. Why have I bought new models? I don't know. I've bought more models that I haven't painted. But obviously, a lot of my stuff is from teenage years that almost kept hold of, almost out of guilt in the first place, because I was like, I spent all this money, all my teenage years, all that pocket money gone to waste. I'm not just chucking this or eBaying this. I'm keeping this, and one day I'm going to do something with this. And now I've finally come back to it, and the something I'm doing with it is finally painting the stuff. But yeah, it is quite overwhelming when you've got that sort of backlog of stuff, and you just you want to see it painted. But I definitely won't ever see it all painted. But I want to have at least one completed army. That's the thing. Then I can at least give myself some kudos for that, which is probably why it'll be ogres, because there's less of them to paint to have a full, what you can inverted commas call a full army, and then I can say that's done.
I mean, that seems legitimate.
Paint them big and paint them proud. That's
just go giants, then you need about 3 of them.
This is my army of dragon.
Hey everyone, Victor here. Before we end this first episode of the Penultimate Roll, I just want to talk briefly about why we've made this, and what we want the podcast to be, and why we need your help. I promise this won't take very long. You see, this is a bit of an experiment for us. As a group of people who prefer to keep our faces off the camera, we know that our content is in danger of seeming impersonal compared to the talking head footage you might see on other channels. but we're still real people and have real personalities and opinions, and we hope the Penultimate role will allow us to connect with our viewers and subscribers in a more tangible way. We also hope that this series will help to reduce the gap between our videos, giving our dedicated subscribers a bit more content without compromising our usual release schedule. But we do need your help. There's no point in us making this podcast if it's not the sort of content that our viewers want. So even if you wouldn't normally comment on our videos, please let us know what you think. Is the podcast the right move? Did the format work for you? What would you change? Basically, tell us what you think and, crucially, why you think it. We're committed to producing at least 3 episodes, but whether we continue and in what form and how regularly, all of this will come down to the feedback that we do or don't receive. So we won't be offended if it's not for you, and we'd be really grateful if you tell us your thoughts. Of course, if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, get involved. Are there topics that you'd like us to discuss or questions that you'd like us to answer? Do you have an opinion about something that we discussed?
And let us know what your dustiest model project or even dustiest board game that you haven't played, Vignis knows how long. That might be an interesting one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what's sitting on your shelf and whether it's making you feel guilty or making you feel inspired. Well, Nick, thanks for joining me. It's been epic.
It's been good fun. Thank you for inviting me.
We'll catch you on the next one. Until we do, remember to work hard, play better, and take care out there.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.